Influencer collaboration secrets, tips to boost your brand. So, if you've ever wondered how to tap into the power of influencers to be able to elevate your brand, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. We're going to explore effective strategies for reaching out to influencers, building genuine partnerships, and leveraging their audiences to grow your small business. So imagine having trusted voices in your niche, championing your products and services. I mean, that's incredible, right? Well, it's not just a dream, it is entirely achievable if we have the right approach. So, we're going to share some practical tips. We're going to talk about personalized outreach messages, understanding influencer alignment with our brand, and creating mutually beneficial collaborations. So, whether you're just starting out, whether you're looking to refine your influencer strategy, this is exactly what we're going to talk about: how to unlock the secrets to successful influencer partnerships that could propel your business forward. So, let's jump into it. Now, here are some effective ways to reach out to influencers for collaboration. The first is research and engage first. So you want to follow the influencers' social media accounts and engage with their content before reaching out. So it's really important we show them an interest. We want to like, comment, share their posts to build familiarity. We also want to make sure that we're using the right channel. Email is often the preferred outreach method, but it does depend. We want to avoid sliding into the DMs unless that's what the influencer says they prefer, because we want to make sure that we're reaching them on their terms. So we can find their contact information through their social profiles, through their websites, or possibly through their media kit, depending. Now, the third thing that we want to do is we want to craft a compelling subject line. So the whole idea here initially is to reach out and establish a relationship. The mistake that I see a lot of people make when they try to forge any kind of partnership or any kind of relationship is they come at it from the perspective of what they stand to gain. So I know that as a business owner, if I can get this influencer in my market to recommend me to, their audience, that's going to make me a lot of sales. But there's no benefit or value to the influencer to go at them with that approach. Hey, listen, if you promote my stuff, I'm going to make a lot of money. Okay. Okay, great. That's not really giving the influencer any kind of reason to want to work with me. So what I need to do is I need to find a way to reach out where all I'm doing initially is establishing the relationship. Once the relationship is built, then we can get into more. And the idea is we need to focus on what value we could provide them and their audience, right? If I'm an influencer and I put myself in an influencer's shoes, what is it that they want? They want things that are going to serve their audience, because when they serve their audience grows, their audience gets more engaged, their audience gets more excited. And if they spent the time and energy to be an influencer in the first place, that's obviously what they're looking for. In addition, they obviously are human beings too. They want to be able to benefit. So if there are ways that we can benefit them and benefit their audience at the same time, that's a win-win. Now, if we benefit from it as well, that's great. But that isn't going to be their concern. That's our concern. But we need to make sure we approach them from the perspective of what they're going to get and how their audience is going to benefit from working with us. So when we're trying to do this, we can use keywords like collaboration opportunity, with our brand name put in there. We can use things like, hey, I noticed, whatever. We can point out something they did, a post that they made, something that they stand for. What we want to do is hook them with something that they're going to recognize. We've all gotten these direct messages or these emails from people where the whole idea is we know that they want to do business with us. And we know that because we can tell by the subject line, we can tell by the way it's structured, that really all they're doing is reaching out to see if we can do something for them, or they want to sell us something. So we want to make that headline really clear. We want it to be enticing. So it's going to increase those open rates, but we also want to make sure that it is benefit focused for them and for their audience. So we can attach something that they've said. We can use one of their quotes that they've used. We could tell them something that we appreciated or valued, or compliment something that they've done, not in a pandering and patronizing, ridiculous way where it's so obviously a veiled approach at just trying to get them to open it, but something genuine. If something they've done genuinely strikes a chord with us, if we are engaging with all of their content and we're, forwarding their stuff and sharing it and liking it and commenting, that's going to show that we're engaged to begin with. So if we start off with all of that, and then when we start to reach out, we reach out from the perspective of fact finding, information gathering, relationship establishing, as opposed to what can you do for me? What sort of business relationship can we have? That in general is going to be a lot more effective because first of all, it's going to be a lot more rare. They're going to be getting any influencer, anybody with any audience gets approached constantly for things that they want other people want them to do for them. And so it's veiled as, hey, there's a benefit for you, but it's so thinly veiled that the person reading it can tell. They can tell you're just in it for yourself and that you don't really care about a benefit to them. And that is always going to be something that's going to turn people off unless they're in a position of desperation. If they're desperate to make money, that might actually work. But at the end of the day, it's about establishing a relationship first. And once we've done that, then we've got their attention, then we can talk to them. If you think about this in terms of advertising, if we write an ad and we put the ad out there and we have a headline that isn't good, it doesn't matter what falls after that, right? Because no matter how good our product or service is, if we don't get their attention with the headline, we've lost the rest of it. It's the same idea. When we're approaching an influencer and they don't know who we are, the hope is because we've engaged with their content, the hope is because we've done some outreach with them already, that they'll at least recognize the name and say, oh, there's something, I'm not sure where I know him or her, but I do, I recognize that name. And then at least that will give us a little bit of a leg up. And then on top of it, then if we have a subject line that gets them to want to open it, that's going to be a lot more effective and powerful. And then if they go back and they look at their account and they see, oh, this person does follow me, they've really engaged in my post. Now we're starting to get somewhere in terms of they're going to be open-minded to listen, engage, and discuss. And that's really where we need to get to if we ever want to be able to establish a relationship that's going to be mutually beneficial and that we're going to be able to use them to market our business and we're going to be able to provide value for them. So those points are very important. The initial engagement, make sure that the audience is congruent, and then personalizing our message that we send to them. So we want it to be something personal and non-salesy, non-pitchy. So we can address, we're going to personalize the message. And so we want to address the influencer by name, and we want to mention the specific content that we really like. The important thing here is to show that we've done our homework and that we understand their brand, because this is the next step. So we're engaging with their stuff. We're reaching out. Now, if what we say is, hey, that was a really great post you made last week about dog collars, and they didn't post anything about dog collars, we've lost them, right? Whatever equity we've built up and whatever attention we were able to successfully get, we've now lost because we've shown we don't understand them. I've had people, do this to me a lot, where they reach out and maybe it's a well-crafted email or a well-crafted approach. I start to read through it and there's 3 or 4 facts in there that have nothing to do with me. They're totally unrelated. So I already know at that point that this was a bulk message, that they weren't really interested in me, but it's just something that instead, they were told they're supposed to do. So it's far easier when we're doing bulk and when we're doing like a lot of something to use a boilerplate template for every single thing we're doing. But I'm going to tell you that that is not the right approach to use for this. If you use the same boilerplate approach, send it out to everybody with the idea that you hope some of them will catch on with it, in all likelihood, you aren't going to get any results. The smart thing, what we really need to do there is customize it. So we can have a template that we work off of, but we do need to customize it, even though it's work for each and every individual influencer that we reach out to. So that way, they know that we're reaching out to them specifically. And that way, we're in a position where they're more likely, if they do read it and we get their attention, to recognize, hey, this guy or gal might really know who I am and they might really be interested. So we want to show that we're engaged with them. We want to approach them in a personal way to establish a relationship, and we want to personalize that message as much as we can with information about them, their content, their post, their channel, whatever it is. So that way, now, if we've got their attention and they've gone that far, they realize we are somebody that actually knows them. We aren't just blatantly spamming out approaches to try to get somebody and see who will bite. The fifth thing that we want to do, especially in the initial approach, and this is also really important, I've seen a lot of people make this mistake too. They want to vomit all the information that they've got. They figure, you know what? I got this one shot. I got them on the hook. They're listening. They're paying attention. They're reading my email. So here's where I'm going to go for the throat. And I'm going to give them the laundry list of every single thing that I want to do, how all the ways that they're going to benefit, and lay out the entire thing. First of all, if somebody sees that email, it's so long, it's already exhausting before they even get started. Second of all, until we have their real attention, there's no point, right? If we've gotten their attention and we piqued their interest enough that if we give them a little bit of bait on the hook, they're going to bite. We don't need to give them the whole thing because that's enough for right now. So we want to be clear and concise, right? This is the next tip. We want to introduce ourselves, we want to introduce our brand, and we want to do it really, really briefly, right? So this is not the idea of we're trying to lay out the entire terms for the agreement that we're going to work together. This is hey, my name's Brett and I am the host of the optYOUmize podcast. I really believe that we can help each other, and I'm excited to explore the idea of a collaboration. Here's why I think it's a really good fit. Your audience is XYZ. My audience is the same. I have products that people absolutely love that I know your audience would benefit from, and they would thank you for introducing it. At the same time, I really believe, and whatever it is, but we want to be really simple and we want to be really short and concise with the first initial approach. And we want to give them an explanation of the fact that, this is the collaboration and also why we think they're a good fit. So if we're able to do that, then, we can sort of get that engagement going, and that way we'll be able to move on from there. So my recommendation is that we start off with an initial feeler out email that we do as an outreach. And in that one, we introduce ourselves. We don't talk about the collaboration. We recognize something they've done. We, acknowledge it. We tell them we've been following them. We've been engaging with their content. They'll be able to see that that's true if they go back and look. And we tell them that we think there's a lot of synergy and there's an opportunity to help each other. And basically, what we want at that point is a response. Then, what we're going to do is we are going to compile the basic details of what we think a campaign could be structured about. And we're going to keep it simple, but we're going to hold this for the second email for the response. Once we start to get responses in, that's when we can send out the second one and say, hey, listen, I'm thrilled that you responded. I'm so excited with the idea of working together. I really believe I could benefit your audience. I really believe that, I could benefit you. And I think that we could, really help each other in terms of both growing our, exposure, footprint, whatever it is, income, however you want to phrase it. And we want to provide the basic details about the campaign at that point, but avoid information overload. So we've got their attention, we got them to respond. The next step is to give them enough information where they can decide whether or not it's worth pursuing. If we don't give enough, we're making them do too much work. Then they got to reach out and say, well, I'm not sure. I don't really know what you mean by this, or what do you have in mind? We don't want it to be something where they need to do 6 communications just to get to the point. But if we give it to them all up front, we're likely never to hear back. So we establish a relationship. On the second contact, we reach out and we say, listen, here's sort of the broad strokes of what I see. And again, what we want to do is keep it benefit focused for them and their audience. We know what we're going to get out of it. They don't care what we're going to get out of it. If they ask us, then we can be explicit. Oh, well, this is what I'm going to get. But what we want to do is show them what they're going to get, what their audience is going to get, because that's going to be the thing that's going to get them to be interested to pull the trigger. And then we hope that they come back with either, well, these are my requirements to work together, or, okay, let's talk details about how we can make this thing work. So we're highlighting the mutual benefits, right? It's not, we don't need to hide that we're gaining something. They obviously know that. But the most important part is that we clearly state what's in it for them, whether they're getting paid, whether they're getting additional exposure, whether they're getting additional branding, whatever it is. And we want to clearly state what's in it for their audience. Because again, any influencer, anybody who's built up an audience cares a lot about that audience. They are not going to promote stuff they don't believe in. They're not going to, sort of just spam stuff to their audience to make a buck. In general, they're going to be pretty discerning about what they choose to promote and what they don't. And so it's very important that we clearly state what's in it for them and for their audience. And then we can explain how the partnership aligns with their brand, aligns with their audience, and why it makes total sense. Because if we're able to do that, and we let them know that, look, there's total synergy here. Your audience is going to thank you for doing this. And by the way, you're going to get paid as well, but it helps me grow my business. Then they recognize that this is all a win-win. The seventh step, the next thing that we want to do in that sort of an email, once we've got, and ultimately we want to do this in all the emails, it's just going to be different, is include a clear call to action. Okay, so in the first email, when we're sending out for a feeler and a relationship establisher email, for that one we want to be just respond with a yes or no, right? That's basically our call to action. Respond with a yes, I'll give you more information and details, we can discuss it. Respond with a no, I won't bother you again, right? So that's the call to action on the first one. Call to action on the second one is, listen, this is a partnership. Here's sort of the broad strokes and the outline. If you're interested, respond, and I will, provide you with, what I think all the next steps are and how we can actually make this happen with as little work and effort on your part as possible. Now we're music to their ears because now we're talking about a benefit and they don't need to work hard to do it. They don't need to put in a lot of effort. That's going to be really important to people. If they have to do a lot, again, that's a deterrent. So we want that clear call to action and the next steps and to determine whether they're interested in discussing it further. But we also always want to make it as easy as possible for them to respond and get more information. We don't want to send them to 3 other websites where they need to click links, fill out a form. It's got to be just respond to this email with the word yes, and I'll send you the next step or whatever it is. Make it as simple as possible. Once we have a relationship established and we're doing business, we can make it a little bit more even. In the beginning, we need to do all the heavy lifting because we're trying to establish a relationship. Now, the eighth step or the eighth thing that we want to do in this case is we want to follow up appropriately. So if we don't hear back, if first of all, if we get the yes, obviously we know that's pretty easy. Whether it's on the first email, the second email, whatever, if we get the yes, obviously we respond with the next step. If we get the no, obviously we're going to put them in a no file. We may reach back out to them, but we aren't going to do it soon. We're going to put them in a list to go back to 6 months, a year from now. Look, people's circumstances change. Maybe today they're a no. So we don't want to badger people like that. All we're going to do is annoy them, alienate them, and the last thing they're going to want to do is do business with us. But it doesn't mean we can never follow up. We just want to let that lie for a while. If we don't get any response, and this is going to be the most common thing, especially initially, then what we want to do is follow up. And so what we do is we send a polite follow up, after a few days or maybe up to a week. But we don't want to wait too long either. And we don't want to be pushy. We don't want to send multiple messages, hit them on their direct message, hit them in the email, hit them on Instagram, hit them on Facebook. That's going to annoy people. What we want to do is follow up with the same method that we used. And so we could send another email and we could say, hey, just wondered if you saw my last message. All I'm looking for is a simple yes or no. Tell me yes, I'll send you the next steps. Tell me no, I won't bother you anymore. If they don't respond to that again, then we can try a different platform. So then if we have an ability to message them on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, then we can reach out there and say, hey, I sent you a couple of emails over the last few days. I just didn't know if you had a chance to see them or not, but would love your feedback. That's going to generate a little bit of curiosity anyway. So the likelihood that they go and they look, it increases. They may not, but they may have never seen the emails. So by sending it there, they might say, oh, well, I don't check my email. Okay, great. Well, now you've established a relationship there because they've responded. So we want that response. We just need to be careful about it and not be too pushy. Then we can also use outreach tools and templates. So what we can do is, there are influencer outreach platforms that we can certainly use. So in addition to just flat out email, find the email, send it, or find the Facebook page and, connect with them there or whatever else. There are third-party platforms and services that will also do this for us. So depending on how sophisticated we are, what our budget is, how much time we've got on our hands to be able to do it versus capital or budget to be able to do it. We can consider those things as well, but just know that they're out there. It isn't required. You certainly can do this as a bootstrap way yourself, but those options are out there as well. We can also use email templates as a starting point, but as I mentioned, it's super important that we personalize them. It's very easy to fall into the trap of thinking, well, I'm going to be reaching out to 50 influencers. So the easy thing to do is put this in the email, put in their email address and click send. Yes, that's easy. It's also the likelihood that you're going to get any response is close to zero. So you're going to send out 50, but you're going to waste most of that effort. If you're personal with it, you still aren't going to get a high percent, but you will get some responses usually, especially when you send enough out because it is a numbers game. So we always want to make sure that we're professional. We also always want to make sure we're authentic. Okay, we aren't pitching, we aren't selling, and we don't want to try to be phony or be something that we aren't. So we want to maintain a professional tone, but we also want to show genuine interest in collaboration. And by the way, if somebody does not respond, it's still important to continue to engage on all of their content because oftentimes what will happen is initially they won't. Then maybe the next time they will. Once they see us in their content enough, then we have an opportunity for them to notice us. Once they notice us, then when we send them a message, now they recognize the email and they say, hey, wait a minute. This guy I know has been doing a lot to help build my brand. Let me see what he might want as well. So we want to be transparent about expectations, and we also want to be open to ideas. I mean, look, we can have the broad strokes about how we want to set this up. At the end of the day, this is a collaboration. So if they come back to us and they're like, "Hey, I'm interested, but these are the way that I work." We need to be flexible and we need to consider whether or not that makes sense for us. We don't want to just make deals that are, just to make deals. So if it's a win-loss and we aren't going to benefit, there's no point in us doing it. At the same time, especially if we're trying to get our foot in the door, it's our first influencer collab, then we might be willing to give a little bit more because we want that reputation. We want a little bit of growth from it, but we also want the track record of having done this successfully because that we can leverage with other people, especially if the influencer we're talking about is somebody that other people we want to do business with would know. Because then we can say, hey, I have a collaboration with XYZ. Are you interested also? Boom, instant credibility. So we need to be thinking about this long term and not transactionally short term. That's the big mistake that people make when they try to set up partnerships is they're too transactional in their thought process and it's too transparent. So they don't get the results that they want. If we think longer term, yes, it's a bit of a grind sometimes, but it will absolutely work if we do that. So remember that building relationships with influencers does take time. We want to focus on creating mutually beneficial partnerships rather than a one-off transaction, because that's where the real results are going to be. So the takeaway here is that we're always looking for ways to grow our business. And especially if we're on a limited budget, anything we can do to leverage our efforts is very useful. Influencers already have a relationship with their audience. So when we find influencers with the same audience we want, it makes total sense to collaborate with them for faster and easier results. Establishing those relationships is the same as any other kind of relationship. We want to approach the process by making the connection first, not pushing or selling anything up front. Once we have the connection, then we can discuss working together. When we do this right, influencer marketing can be one of the most effective and high leverage marketing ideas that can help build our business faster than anything else we can do.